The quiet morning in South Ridge, a suburban neighborhood just outside Atlanta, was shattered by a sound no one expected to hear, a gunshot. It echoed through the trees, bouncing off the rows of modest houses and manicured lawns. Birds scattered. Curtains twitched. And in the middle of Maple Street stood a 16-year-old girl named Tiana Lewis, trembling, her eyes wide with disbelief, staring at the lifeless body of her golden retriever, Buddy, lying still on the pavement. Buddy had been her best friend since she was 8, a birthday gift from her late father, a decorated Army veteran who died serving overseas. Buddy wasn't just a pet, he was family, her protector, her last link to her dad. And now, the dog was gone. A few feet away stood Officer Craig Miller, a local cop in his mid-40s, his gun still drawn, smoke drifting from the barrel. He looked tense but unapologetic. "He came at me. He was aggressive," he barked, his voice shaking slightly but full of authority. Tiana's face twisted with rage and pain. "He was playing," she screamed, tears rolling down her cheeks. "He just ran to the gate, he wasn't going to hurt you." Officer Miller took a step back, realizing the crowd was growing. Neighbors had come out of their houses, phones in hand, recording. His voice grew harsher. "Ma'am, step back. It was self-defense." But Tiana wasn't listening anymore. Her chest heaved, her mind flooded with shock and grief. She could hear Buddy's last whine echoing in her head. She fell to her knees beside him, stroking his fur, whispering broken words through sobs. "You were just happy to see me, you didn't do anything wrong." And then, something in her snapped, she looked up, eyes red, jaw clenched, and ran inside her house. Miller shouted after her, but she ignored him. Moments later, she came back out, her hands trembling as she held her late father's old Glock 19, the same one he used during his service. The crowd gasped. Miller instantly aimed his weapon again. "Drop it. Drop the gun, now," he yelled, stepping behind his patrol car. Tiana's arms shook, but her aim was steady. "Why did you kill him?" she shouted, her voice cracking. "He didn't attack you. You shot my dog for nothing." "Tiana, listen to me," Miller tried to reason, though his tone was sharp with panic. "Put the gun down. You don't want to do this. You'll ruin your life." "You already did," she cried. "First my dad, now Buddy. You think you can just take whatever you want and walk away?" Her finger hovered dangerously near the trigger. The tension was unbearable, the crowd murmured, phones recording every moment. Some neighbors yelled for her to stop, others screamed at the officer, then, the unmistakable sound of sirens filled the air. But they weren't local police. These were federal, fast, deep, and loud. Black SUVs came tearing around the corner, brakes screeching as they blocked the street. Out of the lead vehicle stepped a woman in a dark suit, her short curls whipping in the wind, badge glinting on her belt. Special Agent Valerie Lewis, Tiana's mother, and one of the top agents in the Atlanta FBI field office. "Tiana," she shouted, her voice both commanding and desperate. "Put that gun down, baby. Right now." The crowd gasped, whispers spread. "That's her mom? She's FBI?" Tiana froze. The gun wavered. Her mother's presence broke through the haze of rage clouding her mind. Valerie took slow, deliberate steps toward her daughter, her hand raised. "Look at me," she said softly, eyes never leaving Tiana's. "You don't need to fight like this. I know you're hurting. I know what he took from you. But this isn't the way." Officer Miller, still tense behind his car, yelled, "She's armed. Stay back." Valerie shot him a cold glare, the kind that could freeze stone. "You've done enough," she said. Her voice was low, but it carried the weight of authority that silenced everyone. She turned back to her daughter. "Give me the gun, Tiana. Let me handle him." Tiana's breathing hitched. Her eyes flicked from her mother to the officer, then back to Buddy's motionless body. Slowly, tears streamed down her face again. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably. "He killed him, Mom," she whispered. "He killed Buddy. I know, sweetheart. I promise, he won't get away with it. But if you pull that trigger, you lose everything your father fought for. Don't let him take that from you too." There was silence, so thick that even the wind seemed to stop. Then, Tiana's grip loosened. The gun slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the pavement. Valerie rushed forward and caught her daughter, pulling her into a tight embrace. Tiana collapsed in her arms, sobbing. The crowd broke into relieved murmurs, but Valerie wasn't done. She turned toward Officer Miller, her jaw set like stone. "You discharged your weapon against an unarmed minor's pet, in a residential zone, without provocation. You're suspended effective immediately. And I want your body cam footage, now." Miller stammered, "You can't just, I'm FBI, and this is now a federal matter," Valerie snapped, showing her badge. "You think your report will cover this up? Think again. Within minutes, more FBI vehicles arrived. Local officers were pushed back. Valerie stayed by her daughter's side as forensic agents documented the scene, taking photos and collecting evidence that as the sun began to set, Valerie knelt beside the small body of Buddy, gently covering him with a blanket. Her voice broke as she whispered, "He was a good boy." Then she looked up at Tiana, who stood quietly beside her, eyes empty from the day's pain. "We'll get justice, baby. Not vengeance, justice." Tiana nodded weakly, her mother's words finally sinking in. The next morning, news outlets exploded with headlines. Cop shoots teen's dog, faces FBI investigation. Video from the neighbors' phones went viral, showing everything: the shot, the confrontation, and Valerie's arrival. The public outcry was massive. Officer Miller was placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Within weeks, evidence showed his use of force was unjustified, and he was charged with animal cruelty and reckless endangerment. Tiana still struggled to sleep at night, haunted by the sound of that gunshot. But she knew her mother had kept her from making the biggest mistake of her life. Months later, standing at Buddy's grave, Tiana whispered, "You saved me too, didn't you?" Valerie placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Your father would be proud," she said softly. Tiana nodded, staring at the small engraved tag that read, "Buddy, loyal friend, forever missed." As the wind rustled the trees and the last rays of sunlight brushed the grass, Tiana closed her eyes. The pain hadn't gone, but now, there was something stronger taking its place, hope, and that day, in the quiet strength of her mother's arms, she finally began to heal. 3 months had passed since that day on Maple Street, but for Tiana Lewis, time hadn't softened anything. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Buddy's face. Every time she heard a car door slam, her heart jumped. Her once bright smile was replaced by quiet stares and sleepless nights. Her mother, Special Agent Valerie Lewis, noticed it all. The FBI had cleared her schedule to let her spend more time with Tiana, but Valerie was a woman built on discipline and control. She didn't always know how to comfort with words. She had seen violence, loss, and injustice before, but it hit differently when it was her daughter who suffered. Tiana had barely spoken since the incident. Therapy sessions helped a little, but she often felt misunderstood. People called her brave, strong, even a hero for not pulling the trigger that day. But she didn't feel like any of those things. She felt broken, angry, sad, and tired all at once. One night, unable to sleep, she walked downstairs. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. On the living room wall was a framed photo, her dad in uniform, smiling, holding a younger Tiana and a puppy-sized Buddy in his arms. She touched the frame gently and whispered, "I'm trying, Daddy, but it's hard." Her mother's voice came softly from behind her. "It's supposed to be hard." Tiana turned. Valerie stood there in her robe, eyes tired but kind. "You think I didn't struggle after your father died," she continued, stepping closer. "I wanted to burn the world down. But I learned something, baby: revenge doesn't fix pain. It just gives it company." Tiana looked down. "But he gets to walk around free while Buddy's gone." Valerie sighed. "Not for long. The DA filed formal charges last week. The trial starts soon." Tiana's eyes flickered with a mix of relief and fear. "Do I have to go?" "Yes," her mother said gently. "You need to. Not just for Buddy, for yourself." The day of the trial came fast. The courthouse was packed with reporters, activists, and curious onlookers. Protesters gathered outside holding signs that read "Justice for Buddy" and "Accountability Matters." Officer Craig Miller sat at the defense table, looking older and more tired than before. His once confident expression had been replaced by nervousness. His lawyer whispered in his ear while the prosecutor, a determined young woman named Andrea Holt, prepared her opening statement. Tiana sat in the audience beside her mother. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the energy was electric. When the prosecutor called her to the stand, Tiana's heart raced. The courtroom seemed to shrink. She took a deep breath, clutching the small collar tag she kept in her pocket. "Buddies, Miss Lewis," the prosecutor began softly, "can you tell the court what happened that morning?" Tiana's voice trembled at first. "Buddy was in the front yard. I was calling him in when Officer Miller stopped outside. I didn't understand why he pulled his gun. Buddy just barked, not angry, just playful. And then her throat closed up. He shot him. Without warning." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of pens scratching. "And what did Officer Miller say afterward?" "He said Buddy came at him." "But that's not true. He just wagged his tail and ran toward the fence." "Thank you, Tiana." When she stepped down, Valerie stood to meet her halfway and squeezed her hand. It was silent encouragement, a mother's strength passing to her child. The defense tried to paint a different picture, that Miller feared for his safety, that the dog was large and appeared threatening. But video evidence from multiple neighbors showed the truth. Buddy had been inside the fence when the shot was fired. Miller's body cam footage sealed his fate. It showed him drawing his gun before even assessing the situation. He looked impatient, irritated, not scared. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was tense. The foreman stood. "We find the defendant, Officer Craig Miller, guilty on all counts." A wave of relief washed through the room. Tiana covered her mouth, tears spilling down. Her mother wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Miller bowed his head, realizing his career and his reputation were gone forever. As the gavel struck, the judge added, "Let this serve as a reminder that no badge places anyone above accountability." In the weeks after the verdict, life began to slowly heal. The neighborhood that once whispered behind curtains now came together. Someone built a small memorial for Buddy at the local park, a bronze plaque with a paw print and the words, "He taught us love," and reminded us that justice must always bark louder than fear. Tiana visited it often. The first time she stood there, she smiled through tears. A little boy walked up with his mother and asked, "Is that your dog?" Tiana nodded. "Yeah. He was the best." The boy grinned. "I have one too. I hope nothing bad happens to him." She crouched down, meeting his eyes. "Take care of him, okay? They protect us, so we protect them." When she stood up, Valerie was waiting by the car. "You ready to go home?" Tiana nodded. "Yeah. But Mom?" "Yeah, baby? I think I want to be like you one day." Valerie smiled. "You mean FBI?" "No," Tiana said, smiling faintly. "Someone who helps people find justice." Valerie's eyes softened. "Then you already are." As they walked away from the memorial, the sunset painted the sky gold and orange, Buddy's favorite colors. For the first time in months, Tiana felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, because justice didn't come easy, but it came. And that made all the difference. 8 years had passed since that day on Maple Street, the day Tiana Lewis nearly lost herself to grief and rage, the day her mother's voice pulled her back from the edge. Now 24, Tiana stood in front of a mirror in a crisp navy suit, a silver badge clipped to her belt, and an FBI identification card hanging around her neck. The name read, Special Agent Tiana Lewis, Behavioral Analysis Unit, the same agency her mother once led. Her reflection looked strong, confident, but her eyes still held a quiet fire. She'd spent years channeling her pain into purpose. She graduated top of her class in criminal psychology, trained hard at Quantico, and earned her place through discipline and grit. She wasn't just Valerie Lewis's daughter anymore. She was her own force. That morning, she was called to a new case, a police shooting in downtown Atlanta. A young black man named Marcus Bell, unarmed, was killed during a routine stop. The shooter claimed self-defense. The second Tiana read the file, her stomach twisted. The words were hauntingly familiar. When she arrived on the scene, yellow tape still fluttered in the humid air. Reporters hovered behind barricades. The officer involved, Sergeant Tom Keller, stood near his cruiser, talking nervously with local PD supervisors. His uniform was neat, but his hands shook slightly, the kind of twitch Tiana had seen before. She flashed her badge. FBI. Special Agent Lewis. I'm taking lead on the federal review. The local captain frowned. Agent, this is a local matter, not anymore, Tiana cut in sharply. You have a dead civilian and a possible civil rights violation. That makes it my matter. The man stepped back. Her tone carried authority, and a hint of her mother's legendary command. She approached Keller directly. Sergeant Keller, she said, her voice calm but cold. Walk me through what happened. He looked uneasy. The suspect reached for his waistband. I thought he had a gun. Did he? No, no weapon was recovered, but he moved fast. I panicked. Tiana nodded slowly. You panicked and fired 6 times. Keller's eyes flickered. Ma'am, I feared for my life. She tilted her head. You feared for your life, from an unarmed man standing 10 feet away? He didn't answer. Tiana turned and walked toward the body, her mind flashing back to Buddy lying on the pavement. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay composed. Don't let your anger control you, she whispered, echoing her mother's words from years ago. That night, Tiana sat in her apartment, reviewing footage and reports. The case was worse than she expected. The officer's body cam showed clear misconduct, verbal aggression, no signs of threat, and a fatal overreaction. But what caught her attention most was the man's last words before dying. You think you can just do this and walk away. She paused the video, staring at the frozen image. That line hit her like a punch. Those were almost the exact words she had screamed at Officer Miller years ago. History was repeating itself, and she was on the other side now. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. Valerie, proud of you, baby. Don't let the badge change your heart. Tiana smiled faintly. Never, she whispered. A week later, she was called to testify in front of a federal review board. The room was full of high-ranking officials, journalists, and community leaders. The defense lawyers tried to twist facts, painting Keller as a man who made a split-second mistake. When it was her turn, Tiana stood firm. Ladies and gentlemen, I've reviewed every frame of that footage. This was not fear, it was negligence, bias, and disregard for life. We are not here to destroy a man's career. We are here to remind this nation that justice is not optional. The crowd went silent. Her words were calm, powerful, and rooted in truth. The board found Keller guilty of excessive force and recommended immediate termination and prosecution. For the second time in her life, Tiana witnessed justice, not revenge, but account. That evening, after the hearing, she drove to the old park on Maple Street. The memorial for Buddy was still there, weathered, but standing strong. The plaque was tarnished, the words slightly faded, but they still read clearly, "Justice must always bark louder than fear." She smiled, kneeling beside it. "Hey, boy," she said softly. "I did it. I kept my promise." Her mother's voice came from behind her. "You didn't just keep it," Valerie said. "You lived it." They stood together under the evening sky. The air smelled like rain, and the world felt calm again. Tiana looked at her mother. "You know, for years I thought that day broke me. But now I think it built me." Valerie smiled. "Pain doesn't build you, sweetheart. How you rise from it does." They stood in silence for a long moment, the sun setting behind them. A dog barked in the distance, playful, carefree, and both women smiled. The world still wasn't perfect. There were still injustices, still pain, still fear. But now, there was someone out there who refused to let it go unchallenged. And her name was Special Agent Tiana Lewis, the girl who once pointed a gun at a cop, now holding a badge that protected truth. It had been nearly 2 years since Special Agent Tiana Lewis's last major case, the one that exposed Sergeant Keller's crime and made headlines across the country. Her name had become well known within the Bureau, respected, feared by corrupt officials, and admired by those who still believed in real justice, but fame wasn't her goal. Truth was. And truth, she was learning, was harder to find than ever. That morning, Tiana stood in front of the FBI briefing room, reviewing a thick classified file. Her superior, Deputy Director Raymond Cole, entered, holding a tablet and a cup of black coffee. "Lewis," he said, placing the file on the table. "We've got something big, something dirty." Tiana looked up, curious. "How dirty?" Cole's expression darkened. "Systemic. A network of officers, judges, and local politicians running an illegal weapons trade through the Atlanta Metro Police Department. Someone's protecting them from the inside." Tiana's jaw tightened. "And you want me to go undercover?" He nodded. "You've got the perfect cover story. Former behavioral analyst turned security consultant. You'll infiltrate through a man named Captain Dean Riker. He's the one pulling the strings, but we need proof, real proof." Tiana flipped through the photos in the file, guns, cash, evidence charts, and a headshot of Riker, tall, sharp-eyed, and confident. His smile was cold. Cole's voice softened. "I know what you've been through, Tiana. This one won't be easy. These guys don't just bend the law, they bury people under it." She closed the file and looked him dead in the eye. "Then it's a good thing I don't scare easy." 2 weeks later, Tiana's new identity was complete: Tiana Ward, private security expert with a background in threat analysis. Her fake resume glowed with credentials designed by the Bureau. She was introduced to Riker through an intermediary. Their first meeting took place in an upscale bar overlooking the city. Riker arrived with a slow, confident walk, the kind of man who believed he was untouchable. "Tiana Ward," he said, shaking her hand. "I've heard good things." She smiled. "Depends who you've been listening to." He laughed. "You've got fire. I like that. Maybe you're exactly what we need." That night, Tiana returned to her safe house and recorded her report. Initial contact successful. Riker is cautious but curious. He suspects nothing, yet. But the deeper she went, the more dangerous it became. Over the next few months, she gathered evidence, secret audio recordings, photos, transaction logs. She watched Riker and his men meet with smugglers, exchange coded texts, and manipulate police reports to cover their tracks. But it wasn't just crime. It was control. These men weren't breaking the law for greed, they were shaping the system to serve themselves. Tiana began to feel the same fury she'd buried years ago, the same rage she felt watching Buddy die, the same injustice that took her childhood. But she couldn't afford to lose control now. One night, after a particularly tense meeting where Riker mentioned cleaning up loose ends, Tiana returned to her car and found a note tucked under her wiper blade. It read, "We know who you are, Agent Lewis." Her blood went cold. She scanned the parking lot, nothing but shadows. She drew her concealed pistol, scanning every corner. Whoever left the note was gone. She immediately contacted Cole. My cover's blown. Get out now, he ordered. I can't, she said. I'm this close. Riker's meeting the suppliers tomorrow night at the docks. If I leave now, he disappears, and the evidence with him. Cole paused. Tiana, this isn't worth your life. Her voice was steady. Justice always is. The next night was chaos waiting to happen. The docks were dark, silent except for waves slapping against the wooden pylons. Riker and his men arrived in black SUVs, unloading crates. Tiana was already there, hidden behind a stack of containers, wearing a hidden mic and transmitting live to the FBI command unit. Eyes on target, she whispered. Riker was laughing with his men. You see, gentlemen, this is how you stay rich and respected. Control the chaos before it controls you. Then he turned suddenly, eyes narrowing toward the shadows. Come on out, Agent Lewis. Tiana froze. Yeah, Riker continued, smirking. You didn't really think I'd let you just walk in here, did you? She stepped out slowly, her hands raised, keeping calm even as two men aimed guns at her. You've been busy, Riker said, holding up a tiny black device, her transmitter. Cute trick. Shame it ends here. People like you always think they're the end of the story, Tiana said quietly. But you're not. Riker's smile faltered. Oh. Who is then? She smirked. Me. Before he could react, headlights flared across the dock. FBI tactical teams stormed in from every direction. Shouts filled the air. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Chaos erupted. Riker's men panicked, some firing back, others running. Tiana dove for cover, drawing her sidearm. One man lunged at her. She disarmed him with precision and knocked him out cold. Riker tried to flee to his SUV, but Tiana was faster. She aimed, steady as ever. Don't move. He froze. You won't shoot me. She took a step forward, eyes locked on him. You're right, she said. I'm not you. She holstered her weapon just as the agents tackled him to the ground. Hours later, back at headquarters, Cole walked in with a tired smile. We got them all. Full network dismantled. Hundreds of illegal firearms seized. Tiana sat quietly at her desk, still processing it all. You did good, he said. She nodded, exhausted. We did justice. Cole studied her for a moment. You remind me of your mother. Tiana smiled faintly. She's why I'm here. He chuckled. Then the world's in good hands. That night, Tiana drove home, parking outside the same park where Buddy's memorial still stood. She walked to it, the moonlight glowing softly on the old plaque. Hey, boy, she whispered. Guess what? I caught the bad guys again. The wind brushed through the trees, soft, peaceful, as if the world itself was saying well done. She smiled, wiping a tear from her cheek. You were right, Mom. Justice isn't easy, but it's worth every fight. As she walked away, the city lights shimmered behind her, reflecting on her badge, the same badge that now symbolized everything she once hated, but had learned to transform, because Tiana Lewis was no longer the girl who pointed a gun out of grief. She was the woman who pointed the truth toward the light. 2 years had passed since the night at the docks, the night Special Agent Tiana Lewis brought down Captain Dean Riker and his corrupt network. Her work had earned her not just recognition, but promotion. Now, at age 28, she was the youngest team leader in the FBI's Federal Integrity Task Force, a unit created to investigate corruption within law enforcement and government agencies. Her new office overlooked the Atlanta skyline, bright, busy, alive. But even from up here, she could still see the cracks beneath the surface. The news channels praised her victories, the people admired her courage, but Tiana knew something darker still moved in the shadows, and she was right. IT began quietly, a report that didn't add up. A minor case of missing evidence from an FBI storage site in Savannah. Guns, files, encrypted drives, all gone. The official explanation? Inventory error. But Tiana didn't believe in coincidences. She brought it up at her weekly team briefing. Around the table sat her trusted team agent Marcus Tran, tech specialist and former cyber intelligence officer, Agent Diana Cruz, sharp, strategic, and Tiana's second-in-command, Agent Sam Porter, a veteran investigator with 30 years of field experience. We've got stolen property from a federal vault, Tiana said, sliding a folder across the table. And it's not the first time. 2 similar thefts in the last 8 months. Same pattern. Different cities. Marcus frowned. Could be internal access. Someone with clearance. Diana nodded. Inside job. Sam leaned back. If this is what I think it is, Lewis, we're walking into dangerous territory. You start digging into federal walls, someone's going to push back hard. Tiana gave him a steady look. Then let them push. We're not here to make friends. We're here to clean house. That night, Tiana stayed late reviewing digital logs. She discovered something odd. Access codes used on the night of the thefts belonged to Agent Porter, her senior investigator. Her heart sank. Sam had been with her since the start, loyal, steady, protective. He'd even known her mother. Could it be a setup? Or worse, was he part of it? The next day, she quietly monitored his movements. Nothing suspicious. Until she received an anonymous text, "You're getting too close, Lewis. Stop digging or you'll end up like your father." Her blood ran cold. Her father's death, long believed to be a combat accident overseas, had always felt wrong. He'd been investigating black market weapons before his death. The same kind of weapons Riker's ring once moved. Could it all be connected? Tiana arranged a private meeting with her mother, Valerie Lewis, now retired from the bureau but still powerful in Washington circles. They met in a quiet cafe away from the city. "Mom," Tiana said softly. "What really happened to Dad?" Valerie's expression hardened. "Why now?" "Because someone just threatened me with his name. And the cases I'm working on, they tie back to his last mission." Valerie looked away, her jaw tight. "There were things I couldn't tell you before. Your father discovered something, a secret network inside federal agencies funneling weapons for profit. He was close to exposing it. And? He was killed before he could. His death wasn't an accident." Tiana felt a chill run down her spine. "So you knew?" "I suspected," Valerie whispered. "But I couldn't prove it. And I couldn't risk losing you too." Tiana stared out the window, heart pounding. "Then it's time someone finishes what he started." Back at headquarters, Tiana set a trap. Using a decoy shipment marked as classified recovery evidence, she fed the details through secure FBI channels. The same network she suspected was compromised. 3 days later, the decoy shipment vanished. Her plan worked. But the surveillance cameras caught something she didn't expect. Agent Porter, meeting with a man she recognized immediately. Riker, the same Riker she helped arrest 2 years ago. Tiana froze, replaying the footage again and again. It didn't make sense. Riker was supposed to be in federal prison. She checked the Bureau's database. His file was sealed. His status, transferred, unknown location. Someone had released him quietly. The next morning, Tiana confronted Porter in his office. The blinds were drawn, and the building was nearly empty. "Sam," she said, voice low but firm. "I need the truth. Did you steal from the evidence vault?" He didn't answer. "Don't lie to me," she said. "I saw the footage. You were with Riker." Porter's eyes dropped. "Tiana, you don't understand. This goes way deeper than you think." "Then explain it." He sighed heavily. "The network your father was investigating? It never died. The Bureau buried it, kept it alive under a new name. Riker wasn't just a dirty cop. He was working for them. When you took him down, you cut into their profit line. They needed him back." Tiana's stomach twisted. "Who's they, Sam?" He hesitated. "People in DC, high up. I was ordered to cooperate or lose everything." "Ordered by who?" she demanded. Before he could answer, a single gunshot shattered the silence. The window behind Porter exploded, and he collapsed. Tiana dove for cover, glass raining around her. Through the crack of the blinds, she saw a black SUV speeding away. She crawled to Sam, pressing her hand against the wound, but it was too late. His lips moved weakly. "Find Project Sentinel." Then his eyes went still. Tiana sat in the dark that night, covered in blood, staring at her badge on the table. Her reflection glimmered faintly in its polished surface. She wasn't just fighting criminals anymore. She was fighting ghosts, the kind that wore suits and carried authority. She picked up her phone and called her mother. "Mom," she said, voice cold and steady. "They killed Sam. And they're still out there." Valerie's voice trembled. "Tiana, no. No more hiding. They took Dad, they tried to take me, and now they've taken him. It ends now." She hung up, opened her laptop, and began typing a new case file. The title, Project Sentinel, Unauthorized Federal Operations Investigation. Then, without hesitation, she whispered to herself, "If justice has enemies in the shadows, then I'll be the light that burns them out."